Good morning, folks. Welcome to Awakening Israel. Trying to get back in the swing of things, and that is to focus on the scriptures, focus on the Bible, not focus on politics and the world at large, but yet when we go to the Bible, we find some of these things we're experiencing today just kind of echo the past. And so I've opened up at random, and you can say by lottery, by happenstance, by luck, or by the Spirit. You can phrase it any which way you want, or by blessing. Okay? To 2 Chronicles chapter 11. And so in this, I'm just going to read this particular chapter and try not to interrupt myself too much. But there are some things that you probably need to know. So welcome. Thanks for joining me. It is early in the morning, 4:22 a.m. on the 25th of February. May this find you in good health. I'm going to get these glasses adjusted eventually someday, huh? Or maybe this should be my trademark. I don't know. I thought about that. 2 Chronicles 11. And when Rehoboam had come to Jerusalem, he gathered of the house of Judah and Benjamin 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors to fight against Israel, that he might bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam. So what we have here is the southern house of Judah, consisting of the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, primarily. And Rehoboam, the king of Judah, is considering going against the king of Israel. So you have the northern house of Israel, consisting of 10 tribes approximately, and the southern house of Judah, consisting of 2 tribes approximately. Things get a little bit more divided up, and so there's important things here to know. But the word of Yahweh came to Shemaiah, the man of God, saying, Speak to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and to all Israel in Judah and Benjamin, saying, Thus says Yahweh, You shall not go up nor fight against your brethren. Return every man to his house, for this thing is done by me. And they obeyed the words of Yahweh, and returned from going against Jeroboam. And Jeroboam dwelt in Jerusalem and built cities for defense in Judah. He built even Bethlehem and Etam and Tekoa, and Bethsur and Shoko and Adullam and Gath and Mareshah and Ziph and Adoram and Lachish and Azekah and Zorah and Aijalon and Hebron, which are in Judah and in Benjamin, fenced cities. And he fortified the strongholds and put captains in them, and stores of victuals and of oil and wine. And in every separate city he put shields and spears, and made them exceedingly strong, having Judah and Benjamin on his side. And the priests and the Levites that were in all Israel resorted to him of all their coasts. So the priests and the Levites that were throughout all of Israel all went down to the southern half of the tribe, down to the house of Judah. Why? Because they had the temple down there. They had the worship center down there. And we're going to go right into the problem. For the Israelites left their suburbs and their possessions and came to Judah and Jerusalem. For Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto Yahweh. So Jeroboam, who was the king of the house of Israel, the northern tribes, wasn't allowing the Israelites and the priests from executing their duties unto Yahweh. So he basically cast them out of their offices and occupations, and as a result they left and went south and joined up into the house of Judah. And he, Jeroboam, ordained him priest for the high places, and for the devils, and for the calves which he had made. Wow. And for the devils, that just jumps out at me. I haven't read this passage before in this version before. So basically, he ordained him priests rather than it being passed through the families, an office, an inheritance, which was in violation of what Yahweh had set up. And after them, out of all the tribes of Israel, such as set their hearts to seek Yahweh God of Israel, came to Jerusalem to sacrifice unto Yahweh God of their fathers. So everybody who really wanted to follow Yahweh went south. And so they strengthened the kingdom of Judah and made Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, strong. 3 years. For 3 years they walked in the way of David and Solomon. And Rehoboam took him Mahalath, the daughter of Jeremoth, the son of David, to wife, and Abihail, the daughter of Eliab, the son of Jesse, which bore him children, Jeush, and Shemariah, and Zahan. And after her he took Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, which bore him Abijah, and Attai, and Ziza, and Shelomith. And Rehoboam loved Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, above all his wives and his concubines. For he took 18 wives and 60 concubines, that's 60, and begot 28 sons and 60 daughters. 60 daughters, 28 sons. And Rehoboam made Abijah, the son of Maacah, the chief, to be ruler among his brethren, for he thought to make him king. And he dealt wisely, and dispersed of all his children throughout all the countries of Judah and Benjamin, to every fenced city, and he gave them food in abundance, and he desired many wives. What you need to understand is that Rehoboam was the son of Solomon. He became king. He inherited the crown. So David's line continued in the south. And then Jeroboam, such a similar sounding name, it throws things off. He became king of the northern 10 tribes. And he decided that he wanted to keep the people in the house of Israel, he wanted to keep them loyal. In order to do that, he created religious centers away from the temple. So what did he do? He did what the Israelites always do. He made himself golden calves. You know, like that bull on Wall Street that you folks think has just to do with the market. He made 2 of them. He doubled down on the sin this time. Remember, Moses came down from the mountain, and he found them. They had made a golden calf and were worshiping it. That was just one golden calf. So he made 2 of them, and he put them in 2 different locations, telling his subjects, his people, these are your gods. You can worship them. In other words, don't go to the temple in Jerusalem and don't worship Yahweh. This is the big sin that the house of Israel, the northern half of the kingdom, pulled. This is what they did. And as a direct result of this sin here, Yahweh gave Israel a bill of divorcement. It's mentioned twice in the Bible. Yahweh did not divorce the house of Judah. However, Judah did every wrong thing, just like her sister Israel did. They had 2 different fates. As a result, Israel was pulled out by the Assyrians, generally speaking 3 military incursions, 3 campaigns, but some folks analyze the history given in the Bible as 4 different campaigns, and those who do usually regard the 4th one, that they went into the southern half, and went after the walled cities in particular, except for Jerusalem, and they took some of the people out there. And so this huge population was pulled out of Israel, deported to the far side of Assyria, and placed between the Assyrians and the Medes as a buffer So if the Medes wanted to invade Syria, they'd have to go through the Israelites first. And they stayed there for quite a while. Now, Jerusalem, if you read the Bible, you'll realize that Jerusalem stood for quite a while. It was attacked 3 different times. On one occasion, the angel killed 185,000 of the Babylonians, just killed them overnight. These things correspond with some other things that happen in the earth cycles, in case you're wondering. So while they may seem far-fetched and impossible, the events of the earth and the timing of this giant clock that we are on come to fruition and affect things, like the day the sun or earth stood still and they fought all day because the daylight was there. That was one of those times in the earth's rotation where things changed for a little bit and the day actually was lengthened. So these things that you think are tall tales and far-fetched actually have a physical basis in reality. And so when we look at other disciplines, we can do the research and we can prove this stuff. So Israel was divided. The fates were different. Jerusalem, on the other hand, was attacked by Babylon. The Babylonians, the Chaldees, went after Jerusalem. And it took them 3 different attempts before they got them. And they pulled them out and put them in Babylon. And in Babylon, you will see the house of Judah, well, the tribe of Judah, rather, and the tribe of Benjamin. It's difficult to keep these separate, and so forgive me for having to clarify things. Forgive me for confusing things for you. So there were basically 2 tribes in captivity in Babylon, plus the Levites that went there. And also there was the tribe of Simeon that seemed to go up and down across that border. They would migrate freely across there at different times. At the time after the dispersion, or rather the dispersion comes at the end, but at the end of the deportation, at the end of the captivity is what I should call it, at the end of 70 years, the Israelites did not return. The house of Israel, those tribes did not return. But you had to have the tribe of Judah return in particular, because that's where the Messiah was coming from, as prophesied a long time earlier. So those captive by the Babylonians went back home. And not all of them. A lot of them stayed in Babylon. They liked it there. And so you had Judah and Benjamin going back home to Israel. And they had to be there. And you will see, if you look at it carefully, that every one of the apostles, every one of those who was following Yeshua, was of the tribe of Benjamin, except for one. And that would have been the traitor. He was a Levite, so he had entrance to the other places that the others were barred from because of his status, because of his inheritance. And that's how he was able to do the things that are conveyed in the New Testament, such as getting the silver for selling out your Jesus, my Yeshua, and tossing it into certain areas he only had access to. Forgive me for not knowing all these details off the top of my head. I use this Bible for quite a lot of reasons, and it's chocked with so much information. So I think your important lessons of this particular chapter are understanding that the house was divided, and it was of Yahweh, Yahweh said. And he stopped them from warring among themselves, because the people in the southern half listened to Yahweh and said, okay, if it's from you, then we have to accept it. So this is the problem that we have in this nation today, except we are further removed. We don't know who we are, and we don't have the context, the cultural context that all this stuff occurred in. And so we will not recognize ourselves from this, but yet our nation is pretty much paralleled. Think about it. We have the north and we have the south. Just like Israel was divided into the house of Israel up north and the house of Judah down south. So we were divided, and we have stayed together. And the outsiders, the evil ones, came and attacked us. And if you think it carefully, those people from Assyria and those people from Babylon were were sent by Creator Father Yahweh God. Why? Because the Israelites had screwed up, they had sinned. And so you have this original sin for the house of Israel of 2 golden calves, not just one, and that was a problem. They varied from the faith so greatly that Yahweh, Father, gave them a bill of divorcement. That's in the Bible, mentioned twice. So they were worse off. Another thing is that the Israelites did not go home. When the time came to go home, they discussed it among themselves, and the prophet had told them that they weren't going back home. It was also foretold they would forget who they were, and they would no longer be called by their father's name, but by his father's name. And of course, that would have been Isaac. So they would have been known as Isaac's sons, or Saxons. I don't think it's so narrow as just being Saxons. It's greater than that, but I think that's a definite big clue as to who we are and where we went. And so the prophet said we would break into lands that had never been occupied. Well, there were people out there already, and not only were there people, but there were Israelites that had already been into Europe. They had left quite a while ago. There were actually Israelites who left by ship from Egypt and broke into the rest of the world. And there were others that did not even go to Egypt. They were gone before the famine, before the family went to Egypt. And that notably would be the sons of Zerah. Zerah had 5 sons, each of which was noted for their intelligence, and they left. They left, I guess. They got into a bit of a conflict, and they left and they departed. One of those boys founded the city of Troy. Yes, the city of Troy really existed, founded by one of Zerah's sons. Remember that when Zerah came out of the womb, there was great argument as to which boy was the oldest, as to which was inheriting things. There was a lot of dissension over that. And so you had Zerah and Pharez. Out of Pharez's line came your Jesus, my Yeshua. It came out of David's line, came out of Pharez. Zerah had left the country before they went to Egypt. And one of those dudes ended up on Ireland, way up there, as a matter of fact, on the north shore of Ireland. And it wasn't until, let me think here just a little bit. Yes, it was when Jerusalem fell that the prophet Jeremiah took the crown princesses. They were the survivors and the inheritors of King David's throne. He took them on a deep sea vessel. He landed in Spain, and he got the youngest one, Scota, Princess Scota, married to an Israelite who was already in dispersion, who had left Israel a long time earlier. And she got off the boat in Spain, got married to an Israelite. And that group of people in Spain eventually migrated up to Scotland. Scota, Princess Scota. The Scots are named after Princess Scota. And before Spain, the same group had been in Greece. And I believe that this was the group that wouldn't go to war against their brothers. So rather than fight other Israelites, they'd move on. They'd pick up and leave and thereby avoiding shedding their brother's blood. And if you think about it, after what happened in the book of Genesis, where Cain, the half-brother of Abel, murdered his brother Abel, you realize that was kind of an important lesson. That really bothered them back then. So they weren't going to go to battle against their own brothers. They'd pick up and go, move somewhere else. They would rather do that. And we do know that the Scots were from Israel. How do we know that? It's the only one that we've got a good written record on. Because when the Scots appealed to the Pope for their independence, to to the Bishop of Rome, they cited these treaties and they cited where they came from. And the Pope agreed with them. He agreed with the whole argument, intellectual argument, the whole case, that they had come from Spain, and before that Greece, and before that the house of Israel. And that's the strongest evidence we have that Caucasoids were from Israel. Well, we do have some other evidence, but that's one in which the Pope granted independence to Scotland based upon that historical evidence, the facts that they presented. Zera's boys did quite a bit, founding Troy and some other cities, ending up there in Ireland. And it was there that the prophet Ezekiel's words were fulfilled. The prophet Ezekiel said, I will turn over the crown 3 times. And that happened. The first turnover was when the crown princess Tia Tamar married the head chieftain on northern Israel. Jeremiah required several things of that chieftain up there, who was an Israelite, who had left before the Israelites went to Egypt. In other words, they had never been enslaved. That was one group that had been enslaved that was a proper and good and noble group. The other group that had never been enslaved were the descendants of Cain, who were not proper and noble, who Joshua confronted in the temple and called them by who their father was, the father of all lies and a murderer from the beginning. And Ezekiel describes the great eagle took and plucked off the topmost tender twig of the great oak. In other words, he took the crown princess, and that descriptor, if you will, was feminine in the Old Hebrew, in the Paleo-Hebrew. So Ezekiel is describing the prophet Jeremiah as taking the crown princess from Jerusalem, from the promised land, and transplanting her up to northern Ireland rather, and there she married a descendant of the tribe of Zerah. And she was from the tribe of Pharez. And at that point, the low bow was made high, meaning the tribe of Zerah, which basically they felt they took it in the shorts. They weren't recognized for the inheritance that they deserved, since Zerah put his hand out first. If you go back and read that, there are 2 boys, there's twins, and the midwife is there, and every word she pronounces is prophetic. And they tied a scarlet thread, a red thread, around the wrist of the first boy to start to come out. His hand came out, they tied that scarlet thread around his wrist. He pulled his hand back up in. And the other boy came out. So they marked the firstborn, but he went back in. There was a breach. That's what Pharez means. Zerah means seed. And Pharez came out. And so there was great argument as to which child was born first. You can understand how confusing that would be. And so this low bow, the Zerah line, which had been low until that point, wasn't getting the recognition. And then at this marriage, he was elevated by that marriage. He became the rightful king of Israel, the inheritor of the crown. And the low branch, Zerah branch, became high, and the high branch, the Pharez branch, became low. And there were 3 turnovers. The first was in Ireland. The second was in a marriage that occurred in Scotland. And the third was the marriage that occurred in England. And the pillow stone went with them. And that stone remains today in Scotland. It was returned to the Scots a few years ago. And they're going to be hauling that out because they've got to, whatever this king they're going to have, who's actually a breach in the line. He's not there, honestly. That family. Something happened a while back, and they aren't really the true inheritors of the throne of the line of David. That was broken. The true inheritor of that throne is a man who resides in Australia. He's a sheep rancher, an elderly gentleman who's quite content and happy being with his life there in Australia. He has said that he would serve if the people drafted him and required it, he would do it. He would step up to the plate and do his duty to them. He looks at it as a duty. Anyway, so we've gotten a bit into the love story, and that pillow stone is in the coronation chair, and that is going to be used here shortly to coronate their new king. As you can tell, I don't approve. And so, that's where we are today. I hope you got something out of this. Share it with other folks. I love talking about that love story. I think it's a touching story. It also lets you know that the line continued. I've also let you know that the people that are on that throne today are not the proper ones, haven't been for a while. And believe me, the previous Queen Elizabeth II, knew that. She knew that they didn't belong there, that somebody else was there. As a matter of fact, it looks like Princess Diana might have been actually more entitled to that crown than they were. I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't like her. But there's some other things there, too. We have entered into a very dark place on the planet at this point, and that is because the evil guys know who they are, and they know who we are, the good guys, and they're after us. They're genociding us as fast as they can. And those people in England are actually part of the bad guys. Those ones on the throne, that is, are part of the bad guys. And so they're busy genociding us as well. And if you think that they haven't known who they are and who we are, they knew it during our Revolutionary War, when their king, I believe it was King George, decided to take out a bounty on our people here. And the bounty was paid to the Canadian Indians, and it was motivation for the Indians to go down into the colonies and scalp people, kill people. And the king listened to his advisors, and just so that you know, it was a war of genocide, white genocide. The king put a triple bounty on long blonde hair. 3 times the normal bounty for long blonde hair. And then on long hair of any other colors, meaning women's scalps, it was a double bounty. And then on a short-haired scalp, a man's scalp, it was a regular bounty. And so it was a war of genocide as well, even back then. Just to let you know how evil that king, that crown in England is. And they still maintain control over us through a series of secret societies, a series of secret deals and emissaries over here. We are not independent. We are not the land of the free, home of the brave. We are enslaved. They've got us enslaved. I say we throw their yoke off. However, in order to do that, you have to get one of my Bibles. You have to get the Bible. You have to read the Bible. You have to understand the Bible before you can really take proper action and know what to do to throw off the yoke. You have to be willing to accept the yoke of Yahweh. You have to take Yahweh's laws, the 10 Commandments, the ordinances, all the stuff he commanded throughout the Bible, including to love truth and justice, which most of you don't even realize is a command. I think it's a command. I pulled that out of reading the NIV version of the Bible, the New International Version. Folks, I've gone kind of long here. I'm going to call it at this point. This is Awakening Israel, and I don't know how to title this one. I guess I'll have to open the Bible and find that chapter again. Yahweh bless. May you bless Yahweh. May you join Yahweh in changing yourself and thereby making America good again. We have to do this at the individual level because we can't go up against these monsters that are in charge of this nation today. They have all the power, all of what passes for money, all of the weaponry, and they are dictators at this point. And they are trying to get us killed because they know we're going to wake up and they're not going to be able to stop us. They're not going to be able to contain us. But if you keep yourself asleep, and if you don't help wake up your brothers and sisters in Israel, they're going to nuke us. That's what's in the cards. That's what's in the text. That's what's in the Bible. It's a possible future for us. There are other futures that are in there. I'd like to see us go down those roads. But I don't control that. It's beyond my pay grade. You better get to reading. Get your Bible, mark it up, study it. May Yahweh make America good again and restore our republic.